We got some amazing playsets in the early days of Star Wars. But what did Kenner leave on the table with playsets that they never made? Let's go through a list of ones we wish we had, but never got. And if these playsets were ever made later by Hasbro, or ones that were made by fans. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're into vintage toys and their history, you're in the right place, so hit that subscribe button to see more videos like this. Starting us out at number 10, the Death Star Prison Cell. I know we got the Death Star Space Station from Kenner and the Death Star playset from Palpatine, but it would have been cool to get a dedicated prison cell for Princess Leia for Luke to come and rescue her. This could have been attached to a small hallway to recreate the shootout, and even a small control center where Han could blast the panels. Heck, even make these modular where they were sold separately and fit together. This even could have come with Han in Stormtrooper disguise action figure, since that was never made back then as well, although we recently just got one from Hasbro. In 1996, we would get two pretty cool pieces that told the prison breakout story, the detention block rescue that recreated a prison cell hallway, and a small sliding door that revealed a small prison cell, and also the Death Star escape that continues the story of Leia and Luke escaping the chasm. But in the vintage Kenner line, that scene plays out in the Death Star space station. That is, if you have the super expensive to buy these days, the small plastic blue rope. And if you were a kid, you lost that the first day you got this. There's also some cool fan-made options that would expand all of these, made by a cool creator called Palitoy. It's the Death Star detention block that features the detention cell control room, the shield generator control panel for Ben Kenobi, and I found a cool 3D printed cell block on eBay with a cool floor that would totally work for vintage figures as well. At number 9, Bacta tank with FX7. When I was a kid in the early 80s, I really thought this playset existed. It would have been cool to place your Luke Skywalker action figure or any action figures that were wounded in battle into the capable hands of FX7 to be fully healed by the Bacta tank. And we all know as kids, that playset would go right into the bathtub. We would have to wait until 2001 for the carded Luke Skywalker in Bacta tank that came with a tank housing and a diapered Luke Skywalker, a control console that 2NB could operate, and a platform for FX7, both sold separately. And you could totally use this with your vintage figures as well. There's a really cool fan-made option made by the Next 17 that comes with the Diaper Luke. Diaper Luke. I mean, that should have been an action figure back in the Kenner days. Number 8, Tatooine Homestead. This could have included exclusive action figures of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, even if they were mail-away figures. Could you imagine how much those figures would cost today if they were only offered as a mail-away? Probably in the same ballpark as a blue Snaggletooth, which was only available in the Sears exclusive Cantina Adventure set and was never available on cardback, and was eventually replaced by the red Snaggletooth. But this video isn't about blue Snaggletooth. The Tatooine Homestead playset could have come with a kitchen area where Aunt Beru was serving blue milk. Maybe a little courtyard so Uncle Owen could yell out for Luke. Luke! Luke! But I think the major parts of the playset would be the famous dome and moisture evaporator antenna, the mech area for 3PO's oil bath, but most notably, that blue milk kitchen area. In 2008, we would get one, a Toys R Us exclusive called Disturbance at Lars Homestead. The figures would be repacks of already made figures and accessories from the Power of the Force 2 and the Saga collection. But it came with a really cool looking Womp Rat that was a new figure. You could remove the roof to reveal the kitchen area. Nothing big, but you can use it for your vintage figures too. Number 7, Endor Bunker. This was basically one of the most pivotal areas in the battle on Endor during the climactic final scenes in Return of the Jedi. But we never got an Endor bunker, not even a cheap cardboard one. But I would always use styrofoam when my parents bought new kitchen appliances to recreate the Endor bunker scene. But a cardboard version would have been cool. Kenner was famous, maybe infamous, for making cardboard playsets for the original Star Wars movie and Empire Strikes Back. And I would have been happy with a cardboard rendition of this that could have had a simple sliding cardboard or plastic door to reveal a small storage area to house figures in. But for the Return of the Jedi, Kenner had steered away from doing any playsets in cardboard and only delivered sets in molded plastic for Return of the Jedi, which we would get only 2 original playsets for the entire Return of the Jedi movie, Jabba the Hutt action playset and the Ewok Village. There were 2 more playsets made for Jedi, but they were reuses of the plastic mold and arm feature that was used for the Droid Factory. These 2 Sears exclusive playsets had the same name, Jabba the Hutt Dungeon. They only had 2 differences. The 1983 version came with Nikto, Klaatu in Skiff Guard outfit, and 88. Then, the 1984 version was colored differently and came with unreleased Power of the Force figures in EV-99, Barada, and a Man-A-Man. So that's why a plastic-made bunker could have been awesome to reenact that Endor scene. In Hasbro's 1997 Power of the Force line, we would get the Endor Attack playset, which was pretty cool and came with the swinging branch tree feature and rock launcher. In more recent years, we would get an Endor bunker for the Vintage collection made in 2023. It has some nice detail and both versions can be used for your vintage action figures. But still, it would have been cool to see what Kenner came up with. Number 6. Endor AT-AT docking bay and shuttle platform. Since we didn't get a lot of original playsets made for the Return of the Jedi back in the early 80s, one that would have been a nice antithesis to the Ewok Village would have been the Empire AT-AT docking bay and shuttle landing pad. Shown in the scene where Luke surrenders to Darth Vader on Endor, in an era when toy companies were building massive playsets, He-Man having the Eternia playset, and G.I. Joe having the USS Flag, the AT-AT docking bay and shuttle platform could have been the standout playset that kids would have wanted as a #1 on their Christmas wish lists. And although I did extensive searches to see if Kenner was ever gonna make this, all I found were a bunch of rumors that you can probably search for yourself because they all lead to dead ends. I've seen a ton of fan creators list 3D files for printing, which can have us imagining how big this playset could have been, but no complete finished and boxed offerings were listed for sale. I guess if the people from HasLab are listening, maybe put this in your queue for possible future projects. And before we get to the top 5, a big way to support the channel and help me keep making videos week after week is to become a member on Patreon. Top tiers get free access to my figure sheets, early access to my videos ad-free, and a chance to become a part of my extended community on a different level. The link to join is in the description of this video. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me on the journey of doing this channel full time. Now, back to the video. Number 5, Bespin playset. Okay, hear me out because I can all hear you yelling at me through your screens. I know, we got the Cloud City playset, which was a Sears exclusive, but it was made completely of cheap, thin cardboard. You know those greeting cards that pop up when you open them? Yeah, it was basically a glorified pop-up greeting card. The only saving grace is that it came with action figures, and it was pretty cheap to buy. Well, just imagine if we got a better plastic molded version of that. Either a better freezing chamber with an area that Luke and Vader could do battle in,
most impressive,
or even a representation of yet another droid factory, this time ran by the Ugnaughts. That one probably not. And yes, we would get one in the year 2001 with Hasbro's The Power of the Jedi toy line. And honestly, it wasn't a bad toy at all. Then in 2020, through the Hasbro fan channel, we would get the TVC carbon freezing chamber that collectors have said is sparse, but it was a pretty cool design for photos and scene building. And both work well with vintage action figures. Number 4, Palpatine's throne room. Another playset we always wanted for the Return of the Jedi was Palpatine's throne room. We got the Royal Guards, we got the officers, and the Death Star droids. We even got the Imperial Dignitary. This playset was just screaming to be filled with toys, especially to recreate the most emotional scene in the entire trilogy, next to Han finding out that Leia loves Luke. Scratch that. I mean, the death of Luke's aunt and uncle.
I mean, the death of Ben. I mean, Luke letting his dad on fire.
Honestly, when R5-D4 blew a motivator, As a kid, I really did feel bad for that droid. All he wanted to do was serve humanity. Okay, focus. The throne room was the most pivotal scene and no playset. But to be fair, the only action point would really be a staircase that led up to the swiveling chair. Or maybe have the guardrails collapse when you hit a button. We finally got one in 2021 from Hasbro's TVC line, which was basically a plastic chair with a cardboard backdrop. Taking inspiration from Kenner's earlier playsets like the Rebel Command Center, at least it came with an Emperor figure. And vintage figures felt right at home on it. Number 3, Hoth Cave for the Wampa. Okay, quick quiz, all you vintage Star Wars aficionados. How many vintage playsets did we get for Hoth? In 1980, there was the Hoth Ice Planet Adventure Set, 1981's Turret and Probot playset, and Imperial Attack Base from 1981, and the Rebel Command Center Adventure Set from 1981. So I can see why they didn't want to make another playset for Hoth. But if I was gonna want one, it would be the Wampa Cave, since we already had the Wampa action figure. You could have bundled Luke and the Wampa with the playset, and yes, I know we got a micro version of this exact playset in 1982, but the key word there is micro. Just imagine this playset full size for the 3.75-inch figure scale, and now we're talking. And I've seen fan-made options out there that you can either buy the 3D model to print yourself, or get unpainted pieces printed and sent to you for about $50. But so far, no real official playset has been made. Maybe this might be another HasLab creation. Number 2, Yavin base. I think this base should have been a must-make base. It was the center of the movie, even though we only saw it at the end. It was the area where the Empire would have wiped out the rebels, and I know, as a kid, I would have loved to have all my good guy figures chill there. We never really got a real rebel base like the Death Star space station. It's like the rebels needed their own Castle Grayskull that they needed to defend from the Empire in epic battles that you could have as a kid. Yavin on one side, the Death Star space station on the other. Now, in 1997, there was a pretty cool set done by Micro Machines called the Star Wars Action Fleet Yavin Rebel Base. But again, it was micro and not at the action figure scale. I mean, the big scale one could have been a weird little pyramid-like temple that you can lift the lid off to reveal a mini X-Wing hangar bay and control stations for your figures. Maybe a central control panel system where Leia can run the operations for the attack. And again, maybe another good one for HasLab, since this base was the central good guy spot for the entire second season of Endor. And before we get to the top spot, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, give this video a like. It helps out the channel, and liking the video is completely free. At the number 1 spot, the Sarlacc Pit. If there were any more playsets made for the Return of the Jedi, or playsets made for 1985's Power of the Force line, let it have been the Sarlacc Pit. We had figure after figure of Jabba's goons. We even got the Tatooine skiff to hover above the Sarlacc. What would it have looked like in the vintage Kenner design? That would have been awesome to see, and today, awesome to concept what might have been. In 2008, Hasbro would release the Battle at the Sarlacc Pit for the Legacy Collection, a Target exclusive. And there have been countless 3D printed offerings out there. And for those of you hard up on having a Sarlacc playset, you can always use the 1983 Battle at the Sarlacc Pit board game by Parker Brothers. It's pretty much a Sarlacc pit made out of cardboard. So that's my list of playsets that I wish Kenner made back in the day. And although some of these were eventually made, it would have been cool to see what the designers over at Kenner cooked up. Were there any that you would include or exclude from this list? Let us all know down there in the comments. And to watch more videos about vintage toys and their history, click the videos on your screen now. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.